Good evening, everyone. Today is October the 25th of 2022. Time is 5:32 p.m. This is the regular scheduled meeting of the Richland 1 Board of Commissioners. Do have a statement I'd like to read pursuant to the Freedom of Information Act, which is FOIA. The public has been provided access to the live stream of this meeting via the district's website at www.richland1.org, as well as in person with limited seating. We do have an executive session agenda set before us. What is the pleasure of the board?
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Myers, been seconded by Commissioner Devine. We'll open the floor for question or discussion. Seeing none, hearing none, we'll call for the vote. And we're going to take that vote manual. All those in favor of going into executive session say aye.
Aye.
Those that oppose say nay. The ayes have it. Let the record reflect that the board meeting tonight is unanimous. All members are present. On the executive session, we have the following items to be discussed, which is office of the board, which is the Bowie lawsuit. And 3.2 is our personnel matter, which is the superintendent's evaluation. Also, under executive session, we will be discussing employee suspension without pay and also the hiring of personnel. At this time, we will retire upstairs for executive session. Thank you. Time now is 7:29 p.m. The board did exit executive session at 7:15 p.m. with a motion by Commissioner Devine that was seconded by Commissioner Bishop, and it was voted on unanimously to end executive session at 7:15. At this time, we will now go into our public portion of our meeting, and we will call it to order, beginning with our invocation by Commissioner Bishop.
May we pause for a moment of prayer, thought, and invocation. To the author and finisher of our faith, to the Father of all creation, we come before you now saying thank you. We thank you, Lord, for allowing us to come to you on behalf of Richland School District 1 for the business of the district. Tonight, as we govern ourselves according to your authority, because we submitted to an oath to protect the classroom while preserving the learning experience and the educational opportunities for all. As we are here tonight, Lord, I ask that you continuously cover Richland School District 1 as we have been dealing with threats, hoax, malice, intent with our learning experience. Keep us safe, keep us secure. Lord, I also ask that you intervene on behalf of any staff or teacher who may be feeling exhausted and facing burnout.
Oh, Jesus.
That you renew their faith in the power of education. Lord, is there opportunity for you to even heal the mind as there are children who are dealing with anxiety, trauma, and mental health. So as we come before you tonight, Lord, we want to provide the leadership that provides the resources, the opportunity, and the safety and security for all of Richland 1. We bow before you again by ending this prayer with thank you and amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Commissioner Bishop, for providing our invocation on tonight. At this time, we'll move to 6.2 with our agenda adoption. It's the pleasure of the board.
Move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Myers and second by Commissioner Devine. We'll open the floor for any questions or comments. Seeing
Madam
none.
Chair, Madam Chair, this is not about the agenda adoption, but I want to, point of personal privilege to recognize a Richland 1 2015 graduate named George Shields King III. That's my first baby, y'all. He's 6'4". He takes that after me. And a graduate of Citadel, and he's got a great job, and he's moved back to the nest. Welcome here, George. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Absolutely. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, hearing none, we will call for the vote. Electronically? Let the record reflect the agenda for tonight's meeting has been adopted and approved, and the vote is unanimous. Let the record also reflect that all members of Richland 1 Board of Commissioners are present. At this time, we will move on to public participation. This is where an individual has an opportunity to sign up for an agenda or non-agenda item and are allowed 3 minutes to speak. At the 2-minute and 30-second mark, the board parliamentarian will cue you to wrap up your comments. The board will not respond on tonight. However, we will respond to you in writing in 7 to 10 business days. I believe there's no one that has signed up out front, but we did have 3 individuals that submitted. So our executive assistant, Eva Wilson, will read those in for us. Thank you.
The first public participation person is Jessica Laval. I have a daughter who attends Satchel Ford Elementary School. As a parent, I'm appalled at the survey we received last night pertaining to the proposed changes to the school calendar. First, I feel like the survey was skewed in the way it asked the questions. It basically asked if you believe in helping students who are behind, then asked if you are in favor of a modified calendar. The information given paints this pretty picture that if we vote to change the calendar, we can solve all of the academic problems students are having. This notion baffles me, considering schools would have to find quality teachers to work during these breaks. Teachers are already burnt out, and there are huge class sizes at Satchel Ford with unfilled vacancies because schools can't find teachers. Yet they are suddenly going to want a shorter summer and to work over much-needed breaks. Have teachers been polled about this? All of the Richland 1 teachers I have spoken to had no knowledge about this proposed calendar. But I think my even larger concern is that there is definitely not enough notice for parents and teachers to have to start back in mid-July, as the survey states. People have already committed to trips, camps, etc., based on the traditional calendar. If this is indeed the direction the district is going, it is only fair to give people ample notice. Why does it seem Richland 1 cannot get its act together to make plans ahead of time? Neighboring districts get their proposed calendars out to the public years in advance, and Richland 1 is just now working on the calendar for the 2023-2024 year. It makes no sense. It is definitely not in the best interest of teachers and students. And at a time when so many good teachers are leaving the profession, it should behoove this district to include them in decisions made in hopes to empower and retain them instead of driving them away. The second is Elizabeth Curran. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of the Columbia area, I would like to inform the Richland 1 community about our nonpartisan voter information website, vote411.org. Vote 411 is a one-stop shop for voter registration information, voting precinct locations, absentee ballot information, and most importantly, candidate information. We contact all candidates for upcoming elections, like those occurring this November, to ask about their background and qualifications, their top priorities, and where they stand on local issues. Publishing the responses on Vote 411 provide a free resource for candidates to reach voters and enables voters to read what the candidates have to say in their own words. I encourage my fellow Richland 1 residents, including school board candidates and voting constituents, to take advantage of the great resource that is vote411.org. The last one is from Ms. Felicia Amlett. Good evening. I have been here several problems at our school, Lower Richland High. No bell in the school, so child get the class on time in August. My password was changed twice, on August 10th and August 25th. I did not request it on August 31st to September 26th. My son has been receiving 2 referrals a day in the system. Teachers did not approach him about it, or administrator, but they documented it on October 19th at 10:33. Power School was telling me you could not trust the connection, and at 10:46 cannot parse response. 10:47, it said ASSL error has occurred and secure cannot be made. On October 6th, he was suspended for 5 days for something that he didn't know about until today. Investigate, no one talks to him, just suspended him. 10:21, he called from the teacher class at 11. He has PM release, so he can leave early. He called me. I said yes for 1 o'clock. She marked him tardy, and if he goes to the bathroom for 15 minutes, he gets marked in the system for skipping. And on October 17th, the 18th, and the 19th, I called the hotline to submit my concerns. Senior skip day, I had a meeting, all the seniors in the auditorium, they made an attendance out for him today, and the whole senior class left the premises front and back, suspend my son for 5 days and no one else. A teacher asked him for $25 to make his appointment, which was made. What was removed once I didn't give the $25. Me and my son have wrote several complaints and gave it to the principal. She did not follow up with any of these concerns, and that still kind of bothered me. That's all, Chairwoman Harris.
Thank you so much, Ms. Wilson. Again, the board will not respond on tonight. However, we will respond to those individuals within 7 to 10 business days. We'll now move to the consent agenda, and if there's no objection from the board, we'd like to read all 3 of those items in. 7.1 is the minutes from October 11th, 2022. 7.2 is the September 2022 abbreviated financials, and 7.3 is a contract extension for comprehensive evaluation services. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Myers, second by Commissioner Devine. We'll now open the floor for any questions on any of those items. Commissioner Lomanak?
Thank you, Chairwoman Harris. I see the comprehensive evaluation services is a $300,000 contract. There was a discussion at the last board meeting about moving to the new internal operating procedures that the district was going to implement. Has that been implemented as of this meeting?
No.
Okay, so there are no contracts that are being entered into other than this one between board meetings that are $50,000 or above?
No.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chairman Harrison.
Any additional questions? Right, seeing none, hearing none, we will call for the vote for the consent agenda. Let the record reflect the vote is unanimous. All items previously mentioned under our consent agenda has been approved. We'll now move to 8, which is the Office of Academics, which is 8.1, our 2021-22 accountability presentation by Dr. Minor.
Good evening, Madam Chairwoman, Dr. Witherspoon, members of the Board of Commissioners. I am just bringing you an update on 2 of the items that were not able to be presented upon at the last meeting. And so just kind of wanted to talk about the ACT senior results that have been released. And you can see the difference in the testing years and the number of students that have tested. So these are the seniors that graduated last year that actually took the SAT test. In the past, it was mandated by the state, but back in 2019, they started being able to choose which test they wanted to take. So you can see that with that choice, our percentage numbers did drop. And if you look at the composite score over time, from 2018 to 2022, we have increased. And so you can see that 2022 is the highest composite score that we have had over time. But of course, you're also looking at the number of students that took the test. When we look from 2021 to 2022, you can see the difference between our English score. We increased 1.4. Our math, we increased 9/10. Reading, we increased a point. Science, 1.5. And our composite rose 1.3. And you can see that we were above or right at the state average from those scores. And then to talk about our graduation rate, we are very excited to see that we improved on our graduation rate again. This year, we rose at the district level. Last year was 85.8, and this year was 86%. So 0.2 of a point. We were very excited to see that. And then you can see the other schools. The highest graduation rate was Keenan at 93%. And you can see that at least the 5-year change, we were all in the positives. That was the difference between 2018 to 2022. We did have some dips that you'll see each year. It depends on your cohort, depends on the number of special education students you may have, how many certificates and dropouts. And so it is going to fluctuate, but was just in a meeting with Dr. Prince today talking about what we're going to do for graduation rate this year. And so we're happy with our progress. We know that we can get it higher, and we have a higher goal for next year. And that is it for talking about those two areas that were not presented at the last meeting. Can I answer any questions?
Dr. Minor, before we open the floor, they were not presented at the last meeting because they had not been released, correct?
Correct, that's
Okay, so
correct.
it wasn't an oversight. They hadn't been released yet. They're released now.
That is correct. They
Okay.
were still embargoed as
Embargoed.
of the last time, the report cards, and they have been released publicly now so that we can present them. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
at this time, we'll open the floor for any questions or comments. I do want to congratulate Keenan High School, and I won't live this down if I don't say it, to Commissioner Bishop and now Commissioner Clyburn on their crease, because I have watched that team over there under Principal Whaley work hard to move those students forward. So to see that grad rate accomplished of 93%, and I think less than 10 kids didn't graduate, even though we don't want to miss any of them. That is monumental to see that success, and they deserve a round of applause for that, because that's hard work. And that's certainly not to slight any school, but it just shows what can be done and what can be accomplished. So thank you so very much, and congratulations, Commissioner Bishop and Commissioner Clyburn. I said it publicly.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments from any other board member? Commissioner Lomanak?
Thank you, Chairwoman Harris. I think you touched on this, but I want to make sure I'm right. I've always struggled to compare year to year on AP tests, SATs, and ACTs, because different students take it every year, right? And so for AP exams, in fact, sometimes I don't mind seeing a drop in scores if it means we encourage folks to take a class, to give them that exposure to a college level class, even though we thought they may make a 2. And same with ACT and SAT, right? I mean, it becomes a self-selecting. The kids that are going to take the ACT now are the ones who think they're going to do better on that SAT and vice versa. Is that an accurate understanding?
Yes, sir. That is
Okay.
absolutely accurate. Yes, sir.
I have you here now, and you weren't here at the last meeting, so I want to take advantage of that for just 1 minute. And
Okay.
back up.
Okay.
I'm learning more each day about third grade reading.
Okay.
Easy CVMs and decoding versus fluency and the screeners that can identify those issues. And the more I learn, the more challenging I recognize our K through 3 classrooms are for our teachers. So in working with even just a group of 6 kids, if you've got 3 kids who have a fluency gap and 3 kids who have decoding gaps, that's a big class all of a sudden, because it's really hard. They need completely different work on those skills. Would our district benefit, for example, if we set a goal to put an instructional assistant in every K through, and I know we've got instructional assistants in most of our K classrooms, in every 1st through 3rd grade classroom, would that help the students' reading achievement, you think?
I honestly couldn't answer that question. I would have to possibly talk to teaching and learning, especially Dr. Hagwood, and just have her bring that about from that. I mean, looking statistically, data-wise, anytime you lower the classroom and you provide more one-on-one support, you're going to get better results, of course. But, you know, when you really are looking at that educationally, but our teachers do have a ton of formative assessments that they can use to help them structure and streamline the different types of instruction that those students will need to be able to improve that decoding or improve that fluency.
Oh, and I know we're giving them a lot of stuff to deal with the different gaps that students bring. I think the challenge is often they're all in the classroom at the same time, except for the very limited pullout time for RTI or whatever. What I keep hearing from teachers is we've got a lot of professional development, and they're not. Teachers aren't complaining about stuff, but they're saying what they feel like they need is the support that goes behind it, so that a classroom of 6 that sounds really small. I mean, anybody else would say 6 is tiny, or 9 is tiny, or 12 is tiny. Somebody said that last year at a board meeting, at a work session. 12's not tiny if you've got a range of pre-K to 3rd grade reading level in the same classroom. So I hope that we'll really start speaking to teachers. I mean, I heard from an assistant principal who said, if we dedicated to an instructional assistant in every 1st through 3rd grade classroom, we'd have a rush of teachers to this district, because that's how much he believes they value that extra support, especially in our schools where the students are especially struggling with their literacy achievement before 3rd grade. And obviously, we've got all that data now, so we can identify those schools. So I'm hopeful that that's something we'll at least talk to teachers about, because that's going to take money, time, and planning if we were going to try to do something like that by next year. So thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Lomanak. Any additional questions? Commissioner King?
Yes, thank you. Good to see you, Dr. Minor. I hope
Thank
you're
you.
doing well.
Thank you.
I missed your last presentation. Let me ask you this. Help me understand this. If almost, from the last presentation, if almost all the test data that we've looked at shows that the district is behind the average state numbers, but yet the graduation rate is through the roof, how do we reconcile that?
You are looking at different measures of things, just as if you went to a doctor's office and they are doing blood tests on you. A red blood cell test is going to be different than looking at an A1C test. So when you have different assessments, they tell you different things. When you're looking at those elementary babies, as soon as they start taking that South Carolina Ready test, and it is just one snapshot, a piece of time. When we talk about graduation rate, when those students hit the 9th grade, I was on the call this morning with Dr. Prince in our graduation cohort and talking about that. We look at so many more variables with that. So truly it is just a different measuring stick. And you see that also in how they give our report card grades. They have different categories and different points for elementary versus middle school versus high school. So that would be my answer to that question, is just you're looking at different types of assessments and different types of measuring sticks.
Okay. Any additional questions? Okay. Seeing none, hearing none. Thank you so much, Dr. Minor. We'll now move to the Office of Human Resources. We'll begin with 9-1, which is our employee suspension without pay by Dr. Long.
Madam Chair, Board of Commissioners, Dr. Witherspoon. Pursuant to Section 59-25-450 of the South Carolina Code of Laws, the administration recommends the suspension without pay for 2 days for the employee with initials AD for inappropriate behavior and inappropriate language. The administration so recommends.
You've heard the recommendation of the administration. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move for approval.
It's been moved by Commissioner Myers, second by Commissioner Devine. We'll open the floor for question or discussion. Seeing none, hearing none, we will call for the vote. Let the record reflect the vote is unanimous. The employee suspension without pay, as previously stated in 9-1, has been approved. We'll now move to 9-2, hiring of personnel.
The administration recommends hiring the teachers on the attached list for the 22-23 academic year. There are 8 teachers listed. The administration so recommends.
You've heard the recommendation of the administration. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move for approval. Second.
It was moved by Commissioner Devine, and second by Commissioner Clyburn. We'll now open the floor for question or discussion. Commissioner Lomanak?
Thank you, Chairwoman Harris. Dr. Long, I looked on the website, but can Is the website consistent with or is it accurate with the current teacher vacancies of 56?
No, we have more than 56.
Okay. And can you tell me if you've taken the time to read the narratives, the notes from the exit interviews that were conducted over the spring and summer?
We do read them.
Okay. That's what I would like to read too. We've been told that those don't exist. I want to read the same things that you've read, and that's what I've been requesting for 4 months and haven't gotten. I want to read those notes, not somebody else's digest of them, not somebody else's summary. I want to read the same thing that you and I assume Dr. Witherspoon have read. That's what I want the board to read. So I'm going to renew my request for those notes that we were told at the last meeting basically didn't exist.
Well, let me say this again then. I think I misunderstood your question. I said we read them. My coordinator reads them because she takes the notes.
So you haven't read them?
I have not.
The director of human resources in a district that lost more than any teachers in the state, you haven't taken the time to read the exit interviews of our employees yourself.
There are notes that she takes when she meets with them. So I don't read her notes, my coordinator's notes.
I'd like to read those notes, Dr. Witherspoon, and I'm going to again request that the board be provided with those notes. Thank you, Chairwoman Harris.
Okay, any additional questions or comments as it relates to the hiring of personnel? Seeing none, hearing none, we will call for the vote. Let the record reflect the vote is unanimous. The hiring of personnel, as previously mentioned in 9.2, has been approved. Thank you, Dr. Long.
You're welcome.
We'll now move to the office of the board. We'll begin with 10-1, which is the Bowie lawsuit, which is going to be presented by myself. Let me read this. I'm going to be providing an update regarding the proposed resolution of the litigation case of George Flynn Bowie Jr. versus Richland County School District 1 and the Board of Commissioners of Richland School District 1. This case was filed August 25th in 2021 in the Richland County Court of Common Pleas, seeking declaratory and injunctive relief under the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act, which is FOIA. In the complaint, the plaintiff alleges that the school board committed various FOIA violations, including holding improperly closed meetings, holding meetings without public notice, communicating inappropriately during meetings, publishing inadequate minutes, and other alleged FOIA violations. On September 9th of 2021, Commissioner Beatrice King filed a motion to intervene into this case. While her motion was pending, the court allowed Commissioner King to participate in the mediation between the parties. The parties have did agree to conduct mediation in an attempt to resolve this case without further litigation. The parties agreed to mediate the case with the Honorable Costa Paconas, the former Chief Justice of the South Carolina Supreme Court. While serving on the South Carolina Supreme Court, Justice Paconas has heard and decided many FOIA cases similar to this one and is keenly familiar with the court's interpretation and application of the FOIA statute. Following Justice Pacona's direction and expertise, the parties reached a potential resolution of this case. This settlement does not constitute an admission of liability. The parties acknowledge that some of the plaintiff's claims may have merit in that they may have been some inadvertent violations of FOIA on the part of the school board. Accordingly, to avoid litigation costs, expenses, and the uncertainty of further litigation, the parties intend to enter into a settlement agreement under the following terms. The district has agreed to pay the plaintiff's attorney fees and litigation costs in the amount of $60,000. The district will agree to pay the plaintiff's attorney fees and costs in a good faith attempt to resolve the litigation. The district believes the proposed payment for attorney fees and costs are reasonable given the extensive discovery conducted by the parties. Additionally, pursuant to the proposed settlement, the school board will agree to the following. We will refrain from restricting individual board members from sharing their opinions with the public or press. To specify with particularity, the subject matter of the legal advice sought before going into executive session for legal advice, to keep minutes of all topics discussed in executive session, to include public comments in the video recordings of regular meetings and in all meeting minutes, to refrain from using electronic communications to conduct board business during board meetings other than what is required to vote, to refrain from using private electronic for board business, and to post on the district's website the secret recordings of executive sessions of the board made by School Commissioner Beatrice King on June the 8th, 2021, and on August the 10th of 2021. There are other terms in the agreement which are not highlighted here. As part of the settlement, the parties agreed to dismiss this case and to mutually release each other from any and all damages, claims, demands, actions, and costs arising from plaintiff's claims and/or school board alleged actions referenced in the complaint. This proposed settlement is subject to the school board's final approval, which we will take shortly. Both litigation counsel and counsel for the district believe that the proposed settlement is in the best interest of this district and a reasonable resolution of the case. What is the pleasure of the board?
Move for approval, Madam Chair.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Devine. It's been seconded by Commissioner Myers. We will open the floor for any question or discussion. Commissioner Lomanak?
Thank you, Chairwoman Harris. Have there been any substantive items in the mediation agreement that we're voting on that we have not provided publicly here?
Attorney Boykins?
Commissioner Lomax, there are items which could tacitly be seen as an admission. Since this is pre-approval, it would be inappropriate at this point to publish that material at this time.
I think, is there also an item about First Amendment rights of people coming out of executive session? Because that was not read, but I think that is in the mediation agreement.
That item is in the mediation agreement, and it does contain language that could be construed as some type of admission. Therefore, the lawyers concluded that that would be appropriate once approved. The individuals who are called upon to act on this have this information. They are entrusted by the public to make a decision that is best for the public, and upon approval would then have the prerogative of disclosing it to the public.
Have each of the board members been provided with a copy of the actual mediation agreement that we're voting on tonight?
I cannot answer that. I can say that the district has been provided that. I cannot answer for each board member.
Thank you.
Any additional questions or comments? Commissioner King?
So I heard the fees, the attorney's fees, that's for the plaintiffs, but there is an additional cost to the district, isn't there? So what I want to know is, what's the cost to the district in general? How many law firms do we have or lawyers representing the district on this case?
Is there someone prepared to answer that can answer that? Attorney Williams?
Can you hear me? There are
Yes.
two firms that were working with the district regarding this matter.
Ms. Williams, why were there two firms?
The amount of time that was involved and the information and areas that they have worked in were a part of what we were going through as a school board.
Is that usual? I mean, is that?
It has happened in the past.
I can only recall one on another FOIA case, but so there are two firms instead of one, and then of course there is the cost. You've been spending some time on it, right? Will you be able to provide at some point the overall cost of that loss? Or actually provide the billing hours from those two firms once it's concluded?
Yes, eventually, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions or comments? Seeing none, hearing none, we will call for the vote. Let the record reflect that the vote is unanimous, and that all members of the board did agree to the Bowie lawsuit resolution. Let me mention this now that it has been approved. The following disclaimer will be posted on District 1's website with the audio. That the posted audio recordings were taken by Richland School District 1 Commissioner Beatrice King during 2 closed executive sessions of the Richland School District 1 Board of Commissioners Board meeting held on June 8th, 2021 and August 10th, 2021. The audio recordings were done by Commissioner Beatrice King in secret and without the knowledge or consent of her fellow school commissioners or the district superintendent. The recordings were made in violation of board ethics and board policy BEC, which prohibits the use of tape recorders or any other means of sonic or video reproduction to record executive sessions. The recordings were also done in contradiction of the legislative intent of South Carolina Freedom of Information Act, which provides that board discussions during executive sessions are confidential and closed to the public. The recordings were in the exclusive possession of Commissioner King and are posted in their original form, will be posted in their original form without any alterations or modifications by this district. The district does not attest to the authenticity of the recordings. So that information will be provided once we get these documents submitted back to the lawyers and the judge for final signature to the Richland One's webpage. We'll now move on.
Ms. Harris, I would like to make a statement myself.
Absolutely.
I did record 2 illegal executive sessions. The board chair, with the approval of a majority of the board, has repeatedly violated some of the privilege that FOIA give us. I have expressed those concerns before we went into executive session, yet I was, at least on these 2 occasions, outvoted. Clearly, those recordings would not be published on the website if this violation had not happened. Clearly, this agreement came to the conclusion that there was a violation. At no point did I compromise any information that is legitimately protected under FOIA, such as personnel information or student information. After repeated violations, and also for self-protection because of several incidents that have happened behind closed doors where individual board members felt that they could threaten or intimidate me, I made the conscious decision. I did not break the law. In South Carolina, you can record. And a policy doesn't trump state law. But clearly, the public will be able to listen to those recordings and totally understand that no private information was divulged and that it clearly shows ill intent on the majority of the board to have illegal discussion behind closed doors. I'm looking forward to it. I did not ask for the district to post those, by the way. Let's be very clear. The district, on its own, decided to do it. So they can own up to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. King. And let me just mention that any discussion in executive session belongs to the Board of Commissioners. And that is why it's being posted in an effort to be transparent for individuals to hear those recorded tapes. The board has agreed to share those 2 recordings. So I just want to clarify that, that is the reason why the board has agreed to post them, because they belong to the board. They don't belong, those conversations do not belong to a board member. They belong to the Board of Commissioners. We will move on.
Chairman Harris,
With the,
if I could ask just one question.
in regards to?
The the mediation agreement we just approved.
Okay.
I would ask that Mr. Boykins or someone read that substantive statement that is now public, but that we didn't share with the public a minute ago regarding the First Amendment. I don't know how it was a tacit acknowledgement, but it was fine. I knew we'd read it at some point, but can we just read that one section?
Public until all the signatures is not finished. We've only voted.
It's germane to the discussion we were just having. Can I get this, Mr. Boykins? Can you explain how that section regarding the First Amendment rights of board members is a tacit acknowledgement, but we just admitted tacitly that we may have inadvertently violated FOIA, was included in the public discussion? I just want to make sure that we're not leaving stuff out because it further erodes the credibility we have.
Commissioner Lomanak, once this agreement, and I'm going to yield to you, once the agreement is signed by myself on behalf of the board, and it goes to the judge and it goes through the final steps, it's going to become a public document that will be read by anybody that chooses to read it. But I have not signed that document as of yet. We're still in the middle of a board meeting. Attorney Boykins.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, Mr. Superintendent, I think it would be appropriate for the board to conclude the matter, have it executed, and then publish it appropriately. I respect Commissioner Lomanak's opinion, but as a lawyer himself, he knows that lawyers tend to have, reasonable disagreements about things. Having been involved in the mediation, having had the discussions with all lawyers present, having reached the understanding, I would respect that understanding, and we would go forward, as far as I'm concerned, with the understanding that came from the mediation.
Thank you, Attorney Boykins. At this time, we will move on to 10.2, which is a personnel matter, which is the superintendent's evaluation. That information was provided to the board in executive session. Is there a motion on the floor to approve the superintendent's evaluation?
I made a motion to approve the superintendent evaluation.
Second. Okay, there's a motion to approve the superintendent's evaluation. It was made by Commissioner Myers, second by Commissioner Devine. We'll open the floor at this time for any question or discussion. Commissioner Lomanak.
Thank you, Chairman Harris. Can you, and this is a first time around question, what does it mean when you say approve the evaluation? I mean, does it mean improve the instrument and that we've gone over and acknowledge all the numbers are accurate? Or does it mean something more than that, I guess is my question.
You are absolutely correct. That is what we're proving, is that we've gone over the numbers and all the numbers, information is accurate.
Okay, thank you, Chairman.
You're welcome. Any additional questions? Okay, seeing none, hearing none, we will call for the vote. Let the record reflect the vote is 6 yeas and 1 nay. The motion did pass, and the superintendent's evaluation has been approved as it was presented to us in executive session. Commissioner Devine.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As it pertains also to the superintendent's evaluation, I move that the board approve an additional 1-year term to the superintendent's contract to be effective until January 30th, 2025.
Is that a motion?
June 30th, I'm sorry.
Okay.
June 30th, 2025.
Second.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion to extend the contract of our superintendent from June 30th, 2024 through June 30th of 2025. It's been properly second. We'll open the floor for question or discussion. Seeing none, hearing none, we will call for the vote, and we may need to do, okay, electronic? Okay. Okay, and we can do it electronically? Okay. Okay, we will be taking this vote electronically. It hasn't come up. Commissioner Devine, and it was second by Commissioner Myers. Let the record reflect the vote is 5 yeas and 2 nays. The motion did pass to extend the superintendent's contract as previously stated from June 30th, 2024 through June 30th of 2025. Thank you so very much. We'll move on now to the board report, which is 10-3. This is where a board member can speak on any activity that they've been involved in outside of their normal scope of duties, which is, of course, our board meetings, our chat with the chair, et cetera. At this time, we will open the floor for any board member that would like to report. Commissioner Devine.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We talked a lot about adult outcomes. I want to talk a little about student outcomes. We had one session on the accountability for students. Dr. Witherspoon, can you provide us a status of the mentoring program implementation?
Yes,
Go ahead.
that is something we do have a team still working on, Commissioner Devine. And if you would give us, we have a staffing update on that tomorrow. And I can either send something or have it for the next meeting, but we can provide
Very
that.
good.
That will
Thank
be
you.
provided.
And then also, I received a few emails along with the rest of the team regarding the modified calendar and the survey. Can you explain, or staff explain, how the information will be used?
Do that here, or I do have an item
Okay.
in superintendent's report
Okay.
for that as well.
All right. And my last thing, as it again pertains to student outcomes, I mentioned again at the last school board meeting that we discussed the strategic plan as it pertains to COVID. That plan was done pre-COVID, and we talked about post-COVID. Some of those items may or may not need to be adjusted, and we look at those on a quarterly basis. At a future, I'm just reiterating more of a statement. At a future board retreat, I would like for us to please put this on the agenda so we can discuss this, or as you see fit to bring forward to us so we can discuss that and see if there's any necessary changes or methodologies that need to be changed. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And to your question, Commissioner Devine, we are looking to put the strategic plan on the November retreat calendar. We just got to figure out when with Thanksgiving at the end of the month, and it's only one meeting there. So we are working towards that on the next board retreats agenda. Any additional reports? Commissioner Bishop?
Yeah, just real quick. Thank you, Madam Chair. And this may be for Mr. Brown. Dr. Witherspoon can answer it very quickly. When we're dealing with incidents, as far as altercations, how many SROs are assigned to each one of our high schools? And if the incident rate increases, do we send more SRO staff to there, or what do we do to try to curb incident rates? If that is if you can understand my question.
Sure. While Mr. Brown's coming up, let me say in our larger high schools, we do have 2 SROs, smaller ones, one, but we have added another to an additional high school this year. But there is some, depending on instances and depending on what happens, working with law enforcement, that number or that support can change. Mr. Brown, if you want to add to that.
Good evening, everyone. And to answer the question, as Dr. Witherspoon said, we have school resource officers, known as SROs, in each of our high schools, our middle schools, and as well as our elementary schools. There are some high schools that have additional SROs. In terms of the exact number for each school, and how our emergency security plan is, I'll be happy to discuss that in an executive session. I think giving out certain information could put us in a situation.
So my last question, a follow-up question is, do we assign a number of SROs per student? Like if it's 500 students that depicts one SRO, how is that implemented?
There is a calculation that is used.
Okay.
However, also, other data may go in that may require additional resources to mitigate any situation that puts school out,
Right.
and to give us the flexibility to move from that situation.
And with Fidelity, I believe that you all constantly look at that.
Yes, sir.
And make adjustments. All right,
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Okay, any additional reports? Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Brown. Commissioner Myers?
I would like to talk about my opportunity I had on the basketball court at Southeast Middle School. It was actually their homecoming week, and they had the parents and staff versus the students. And the outcome was that the parents and staff had won. I definitely want to thank the staff for the goodie bags. This was Tylenol, Advil, mustard relax. The goodie bag was just a surprise, but just having the opportunity to be out there with the students, it was amazing. It was also amazing hearing Dr. Myers talk about how the school is now open to every parent. I also want to talk about the fall festival I attend at LR clusters. I want to give it up to the LR schools, the elementaries, the middle. They really showed up and show out, all students, all parents, all teachers. I definitely want to thank the principals and the teachers who just stayed for those 3 hours and just give back to the students and meet and greet each parent. That's it.
Okay. Commissioner Clyburn?
Yes, thank you so much, Chairwoman Harris. I just wanted to state that I also attended a cluster, Eau Claire cluster. Definitely enjoyed meeting some of the teachers and administrators. Of course, Dr. Witherspoon was there as well, and some of the students. So I did enjoy a photo opportunity as well with some of the teachers. So everyone was in great spirits and had a great time. So I just wanted to mention that. And also, 'tis the season. I'm not talking about Thanksgiving or anything, but it's election time. So I just wanted to definitely ask everyone to participate. We have some very important races. Of course, we have governor on down, and superintendent of education is also on the ballot, which is a very, very important race. And our school board races are on the ballot as well. We can't forget about them. So definitely do your homework on candidates, making sure each of the candidates are representing your interests and vote your interests. So I definitely wanted to make mention of that. So early voting started yesterday. The polls are open until, from 8:30 until 6 p.m., Monday through Saturday, during this early voting time. And I just wanted to tell everybody about the locations. The voter election, registration and election office at 2020 Hampton Street, Institute of Innovation, Fashion Drive, Ballantyne Community Center on Bird Road, Hopkins Park Adult Activity Center on Hopkins Park, right off of Garners Ferry Road, and the Park Lane Adult Activity Center on Park Lane Road. So yeah, y'all guys, just get out and exercise your right to vote and participate. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Clyburn. Any additional reports? Commissioner Lomanak?
Thank you, Chairwoman Harris. A couple shout outs and a few issues I wanted to raise. First, unbelievable tour of the warehouse by Ms. Outing that took a lot of time out of her day. To say that what they're doing at that warehouse is impressive is an understatement, because we have given them so many things to try to track and store. And we met a lot of the employees working in the warehouse, just unbelievable. Some of them have been there for literally decades. So I could not have been more impressed, and I appreciate that the time that she took to give us a really meaningful tour. I also want to give a shout out to Ms. Scott, student journalist at Brennan. They had me answer some pretty hard-hitting, probing questions for their newspaper, which will come out soon. It's, I think, their inaugural edition. They were brilliant and awesome. And I want to give a shout out to Ms. Hendricks's class at Brennan. I read a great Halloween book to that class, and they were also awesome, but without the hard-hitting questions. And I wanted to raise a couple of issues. I know that we're in the superintendent's report, we're going to talk about the modified calendar. I do want to raise, so that maybe you can address during your report, some of the emails that I've gotten and the feedback I've gotten. And frankly, I took the survey too, because I've got a kid in the district. I didn't know the survey was coming. I got it. It did seem to tie, the survey at least, seemed to tie the need for a modified calendar year to COVID-related impacts. And I think people were not wrong to take that from the survey. And I just want to make sure that we're careful, because I don't want to suggest promises that may be difficult to keep. I am all in favor for having a discussion about modified year. Believe me, when I talk to teachers from Greenwood and other places, there are some big fans of it out there. But the research about academic achievement is incredibly mixed. And I just want to make sure that we're up front of that. That is not the only reason to have this discussion, but the survey seemed to leave that impression. It also left the impression with many that the decision had been made, and it was hard for them to find a way to answer a question that they care about all kids but may not want modified year programs. So I hope that we'll be a little bit more thoughtful as we proceed with this discussion with all of our stakeholders. I will also say that some of our teachers felt caught off guard. They obviously got calls from parents who assumed the teachers knew that this was on the table. Two other quick things. Internet access for teachers. I'm hearing increasingly from teachers who have no cell reception in their classrooms. They no longer can access the internet. I think that is a real issue for those teachers. They are upset about it. We used to have a bring your own device access point. I know that we have ended that. I'd like us to reconsider that and make sure that teachers who do not have cell access in their classrooms are able to access the Wi-Fi. I think it's a daily life issue for those teachers who are struggling to keep in touch with their families. I don't think any of us would want our cell phones taken away for 7 hours of the day while we worked. That's essentially what's happening to these teachers, especially elementary school teachers who get so fewer breaks. It's also a safety issue. If there's an active shooter, I do not want to tell that teacher to go use the phone by the door, because that's the last place that teacher needs to go. So I would really, again, ask, this is not the first time I've raised this. Teachers are raising it, I know. I'd ask that we revisit that. I think it's a quality of life issue for our teachers that we can fix. It's a decision we're making. Lastly, I was really troubled when I watched the attorney at the former Richland 1 employee's arraignment describe what he considered really obstructive conduct by the district. I always wondered why SLED took over, and then I wondered why there was a statewide grand jury. Well, he explained it. The City of Columbia Police kept trying to get documents and information from the district. He said we wouldn't provide it. Then he said SLED made phone calls that weren't returned. Then he said SLED showed up at the district administration office, this building, and couldn't get past reception. He explained, and if someone wants to tell me this isn't true, fine, but he said in court that the statewide grand jury was impaneled because that was the only way they could get information from the district. I hope that's not true. If that's true, that's insane, because that meant that people from this office had to be subpoenaed to go to a statewide grand jury rather than the district just providing the stuff that SLED wanted. So did that attorney, did he lie in court? Or do we have any response? Because as one teacher said, he didn't get the memo not to say bad things about the district. Surely we've got a response to what he said, because what he said was really serious. Is there any response that we have, either from Ms. Williams or Dr. Witherspoon?
Commissioner Lomanak, we're not in a position to get in a he said, she said, or they said in terms of that. That being said, what I will say is I don't think anybody needs to lose the point of the district found an issue. The district investigated. The district turned it over to law enforcement.
So we're not refuting his characterizations of us cooperating with law enforcement?
If that's what was said, I'm not here to say that's what he didn't perceive or what have you. No, Mr. Lomanak, we're not gonna. We can't sit here and go back and forth. No, sir.
Well, when we talk about credibility in the public, and you've got an attorney in open court, and there's news stations videoing it and playing it, I think we and the public deserve a response to that, because those were serious allegations. Because we're bragging. I mean, at one point we said there was no fraud. There was fraud. At one point we said we did everything right. wasn't totally true. And now somebody's accusing us of literally not cooperating with law enforcement. And I just think the public deserves answers to that. It didn't have to be he said, she said. I just would love a he said once, some response to that, because it's really serious allegations, and it paints us in a bad light. And if we're not really willing to respond, I think that's what the public will take away from that. Thank you, Chairman Harris.
Do you have anything else?
Well, again, I would repeat, the district investigated, the district turned it over to law enforcement.
Okay. Attorney Williams?
Madam Chair, Commissioners, information was provided, information that they asked my office from was provided, and individuals went down there, all of the ones that they asked about. So if they needed something that was additional, I started out going down there with various individuals when that needed to be heard. It appeared that there may have been a few differences in terms of what one person said versus the other, and we got attorneys that were separate to take care of those issues. But everything that I'm aware of that was asked for was provided.
When you say down there, what do you mean?
I actually went over to behind the Capitol City, where they asked the individuals to come in to be interviewed, and talk with individuals over there myself about what they needed, and what I'm aware of what they needed was provided. If they needed something else, no one contacted me about it.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Williams. Thank you for responding. I appreciate that.
Thank you. We're still in board reports. Commissioner King?
Well, now, Mr. Lominack, I'll have to talk to you because I'm going to get grilled by Ms. Scott's students tomorrow at 8:45. So maybe you can give me some pointers at Brennan. So, well, this is my board report. Here we are. After 10 years, this is my last rodeo, my last regularly scheduled board meeting. And I think Dr. Seuss said it best. Don't cry because it's over, but smile because it happened. 10 years ago in 2012, I came on board with a dream that every student in Richland 1 would receive the education she or he needs in the pursuit of her or his dreams and happiness. A dream that we, through education, the resources that we are lucky to have in this district, social work and support and partnerships, would turn the tables around and deliver what our kiddos deserve and are capable of doing, because I believe they're capable of doing. So in 2014, we adopted the mission statement, "We are Richland 1, a leader in transforming lives through education, empowering all students to reach their potentials and dreams." So our students mean everything to our community. It's prosperity, it's pride, it's health, it's safety, and yes, it's future and ours. I often joke, but in kind of a serious way, when I say that when I look at children, I look at my retirement, and I want my retirement to look darn good. And I invite you to do the same when you look at children. Everything is about the students, all the students, and every student. That is the charge of this board, and that has to be the focus of every employee, whatever it takes. And there's measurements and accountability have to be in place. The stakes are high. So as I reflect over the past 10 years, I can only feel blessed and grateful and appreciation for the innumerable relationships and friendships that I was lucky to develop throughout the district and this community. Over the past month, I visited all 53 schools, special schools and programs and charter schools. Nothing brings me more joy than to be right in the place where our customers are. The toddlers, the children, the young people we have the charge of educating. And again, I want to thank all the teachers we have. It is not a cliche to say that they are the backbone of this organization, because they are. They are the frontliners every day. And of course, I think all other support personnel, please keep your focus on serving those who serve the children. Any public official's legacy is left to various opinions. I do not trouble myself with such worry. When a dear friend of mine just told me that the election she's working on is overshadowed by the school board elections, that to me is a great sign of success and victory. Finally, this office gets the recognition, attention, and awareness that it deserves. Stakeholder engagement is at an all-time high. And by the way, I am happy to report that I have been approved to be a volunteer in Richland 1. Yes, I passed the background check. I cannot wait to step in that role. And finally, please mark your calendars. On Thursday, November the 10th, from 5:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m., all, and I mean all, are invited to a farewell party that's really going to be about friendship, following joy, and fun. Right here across the street at the Hampton Preston House. Did you all see the fabulous greenhouse? It is, so we're going to have a great party with all of y'all there. So again, I repeat, Thursday, November the 10th, from 5:30 to 8:30, and all are invited. This is really, really, I can't express it enough. This is an opportunity for friendship, fellowship, and joy and fun. And I won't reveal everything, but it's also an opportunity to showcase some of the wonderful things that our own students, Richland 1 students, do in this district. So I'll post more details on my Facebook page. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, Commissioner King. And I want to complete my report, and then we'll go back. I did attend also the Lower Richland Cluster Fall Festival, and I'm still recuperating from the limbo. It's amazing what kids can push you up to do, and you yield to it, Dr. Vesey. But you remember later on that you're over 50 now, so you can't go low like they can go low. But I tell you, they were cheering me on. You got it, Ms. Harris, you got it. And today, Commissioner Devine, I am in much need of some muscle relaxers, and I'm on every pain medicine it is, because I can't believe I did what I did Friday. Commissioner Myers, you were smart to stand there and just watch me. But great event. I think that was spearheaded by our awesome parent engagement specialist, Dr. Wilson. I think that was one of the greatest achievements I think we could have ever done, was to put parent engagement specialists in clusters that work with the same family, regardless to what grade level the children are in. It works. And we saw that on Friday with a packed crowd at Lower Richland. Certainly don't want to sound redundant, but great attendance from all of our principals that did a phenomenal job with that. Also attended the faith-based breakfast that was hosted over at Hopkins Elementary School. And I wanted to share because, often I share with my colleagues that in the city we pull on a lot of these businesses to help us. But in Lower Richland, you all know, we rely on our faith-based population. And I just thought it was amazing to hear that there was a pastor and first lady team that volunteered at Hopkins Elementary over 3,000 hours. Oh, God. They were at the school every single day helping. And that was just, it was amazing. There were a lot of pastors there, but to hear this pastor, and this was Restart Church, Pastor Wayne Adams and his wife, Ms. Hazel Adams, volunteered over 3,000 hours to that elementary school. And I just think that that was just amazing to hear that. So kudos to them. And then I also attended the CTE Partnership Breakfast over at Seawells with Mr. Dinkins and many of our partners throughout the city and throughout the county. And I just really want to thank them all for what they do to make what we do in Richland 1 a reality. You know, that work-based training and so many things that we provide in this district. One night could definitely not be enough time for us to talk about all of the wonderful programs that we have in our district. But kudos to our CTE program and what they're doing. And I also want to thank Ms. Outen for inviting me to be the speaker at the procurement training that she had. She's been real busy with the board here lately. But thank you very much for having us come and be their speaker to motivate them to keep doing what they do for us. And one of the things I found very interesting was one of her staff members had been in the district for 40 years. And I know Dr. Long and Sheriff Matthew Hazel will appreciate this. He says, I've never had an issue with my payroll, Ms. Harris, and I just want you to know that. 40 years. So I was excited to hear that from him, and he was looking forward to his retirement from the district real soon. 42 years? I'm sorry, yes, 42 years to this district and has never had a payroll issue, which he was excited to share that with me, so I promised I was going to share it as well. And then today, before coming to this meeting, we attended a conference at Hard Hill Elementary School where the teachers engaged in some training after school, and I was their speaker at that as well. And it was a very emotional day for them, but I'm very appreciative of having that opportunity to sit and talk with those wonderful teachers there at Hard Hill, to continue to encourage them to do what they do every day. And as I told them, and you know, I'll say this a million times, if we could pay you 6 figures, if it was left to me, you'd all be making it because you deserve it. You know, many times we as parents, you know, I told them it's hard for me to sit in the same room with my 4 children sometimes because of the fussing. So imagine being in a classroom with 25 students, but only special and unique people can do that. And that's how I view the teachers here in Richland 1 and across the state. Anyone in the teaching profession is a special person because that's not easy work that they're doing. So just wanted to share my board report with everyone. And before we leave the board report, there is a special presentation that I would like to make at this time on behalf of the Richland 1 Board of Commissioners in honor of my colleague, Ms. Beatrice King. As she stated, tonight is her last meeting with this board. She and I walked on this board together 10 years ago. I remember George was knee-high and baby boy was holding the Bible. We stood right here and were sworn in for the first time. And I tell you, it's been a long ride because we've been through a lot in 10 years. We went through everything that's commonly can be known to man. We've had a 1,000-year flood. We've had a pandemic. We've had earthquakes, tornadoes. You name it, we've been through it in these 10 years. But what it's done is it hasn't made us weak. It's made us stronger. So I would like to read this plaque in honor of my colleague. I'm going to do my best to get up to walk over there to you. But if I can't make it, Commissioner Devine, you're going to have to help me. And it says, in appreciation to Ms. Beatrice King, 2012-2022, for 10 years of dedicated service, compassion, and advocacy for the children of Richland County School District 1, and it is dated, today's date, October the 25th, 2022, with all of our board members and our executive staff. And if my colleagues will join me at this time as we stand as I make this presentation to our colleague.
Thank you, Ms. Harris. That means a lot. Y'all know I'm a hugger.
And this will conclude our board report at this time.
I'm sorry.
Commissioner Clyburn?
I'm sorry. I forgot to close out my report on voting. So now until Friday, November 5th, is early voting at those locations that I mentioned before. And November 8th is Election Day, Tuesday, November 8th. Thank you so much. That's all.
Thank you. At this time, we will move on to 11, which is the Office of the Superintendent, with 11.1, which is the Superintendent's Report. Dr. Witherspoon.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Since our last board meeting, we announced a partnership with Bible Way Church of Atlas Road that will expand services for families and community through parent, community, adult, and career and technical education. Services will be provided at the C.R. Neal Dream Center on Atlas Road. The first phase of implementation began last week, and parents and early childhood education classes are being offered in Spanish and English through our Thrive Richland program, which is our Birth to 4 program. Pastor Jackson Bible Way was gracious enough to invite Richland One and recognize the district as well as all educators in the community last Sunday, and very appreciative of our ability to go and fellowship, and we look forward to a long partnership in this regard. And thank you to Senior Pastor Darrell Jackson Sr. and the entire Bible Way Church of Atlas Road family for this partnership. Since our last board meeting, we were notified that 9 of our schools have been named among America's healthiest schools for the 2021-2022 school year. Richland One has more Healthy School Award winners this year than any other school district in South Carolina. The recognition, awarded by the Alliance for a Healthier Generation, celebrates schools' dedication to support the health and well-being of students, staff, and families. Our award winners are Brockman, Gadsden, Hyatt Park, and Pine Grove Elementary Schools, Creighton Middle School, as well as Dreer, A.C. Flora, and Lower Richland High Schools, and our Olympia Learning Center. Congratulations to these schools, and we look forward to recognizing them formally at an upcoming board meeting. We are looking for even more talented teachers to join Richland One team. Our Human Resource Services team will hold a fall certified interview day on Saturday, November 12th from 9 a.m. to noon at Eau Claire High School. Certified participants should possess or be eligible for a South Carolina teaching certificate. All participants are asked to complete the Richland One application and register prior to the event. The registration deadline is Tuesday, November 8th. Additional details, including the registration link, are posted on our website at richlandone.org. October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and the last Friday in October is designated as Pink Out Day in Richland One, where we encourage all of our students, staff, parents, and community members to join us in wearing pink on Friday, October 28th, in support of the fight against breast cancer. I also want to thank all of the members of Team Richland One who participated in Saturday in the Prisma Health Midlands Foundation Walk for Life and famously hot pink half marathon and 5K, which was held in person for the first time since before the pandemic. Thank you as well to everyone who made donations. Those dollars will stay in our community to help support and fund programs and services for breast cancer patients and their families. And as was stated earlier, we're in the beginning stages of just exploring the idea of a modified school year calendar. And approximately 25% of South Carolina school districts currently participate on a modified school year calendar or are planning to implement a modified school year calendar for the 2023-2024 school year. While some districts operated on a modified school year calendar prior to the pandemic, more have begun to explore this option in order to prevent student-teacher burnout, offer additional opportunities for academic remediation, and provide additional opportunities for students. And our calendar committee is seeking feedback from all stakeholders as we consider options for the 2023-2024 school year. We have an overview of a modified versus traditional school year calendars. They're posted on our website along with FAQs, frequently asked questions, and sample modified school year calendars from other districts. Also on the page is a link to a stakeholder survey, which includes a video about modified school year calendars. We are asking everyone to watch the video before taking the survey and complete the survey by next Monday, October 31st. And again, this is just exploratory and information. Again, we did glean from some of the districts in the state that have done it and considered it and are looking at it, and just presenting this information, again, just from an exploratory standpoint. Madam Chair, I know Dr. Broussard is may be prepared to offer any more information on that, but that's kind of what we had put out, and we are responding to just like we did with COVID and so forth. When the questions come up, we update the FAQs and all of that, so that information is on the site as well. So I don't know if you want to go there or you want me to conclude first and then.
You want to go ahead, Dr. Broussard?
Good evening, Chairman Harris, Board of Commissioners, and Dr. Witherspoon. Just as a little background information. The first meeting of the District Calendar Committee was actually held on September 15th. And as a point of reference, I'll share that the District Calendar Committee isn't even typically established until November, and our first meetings are typically in late November or early December. So we started early. Prior to that September 15th meeting, I pulled out the same old PowerPoint that I've used every year and made a few minor modifications, which I'll discuss in just a moment. During the meeting on September 15th, I shared pretty much the same information that I've shared at all past District Calendar Committee first meetings that I've facilitated. Things like the purpose and goal, the expectation of stakeholder engagement, the statutory guidelines that we have to follow, other considerations like the district's desire to get out before winter break or targeted dates for graduation, the length of summer learning programs, and so forth. And then the last item we typically discuss is next steps. So this year's first meeting was basically the same as all other first meetings with one exception. During the discussion of other considerations, I shared with the committee that we were asked last year when our calendar recommendation was presented to the board whether or not we had considered a modified school year calendar. And with that in mind, one slide was added to my presentation that included 4 bullet points about a modified school year calendar. There was a bullet indicating what Dr. Witherspoon just shared, that approximately 1/4 of the school districts in South Carolina are already on a modified school year calendar, or they're planning to be next year. There was another bullet point that said there are pros and cons to everything. There was a bullet that stated that moving to a modified school year calendar would require a state waiver, and that's one of the beauties of having a modified school year calendar, is that we're actually allowed to begin the school year before that mandated 3rd Monday in August. And then the final bullet was one that stated very specifically, and I quote, "Stakeholder input is essential." And then we provided samples of both modified school year calendars and traditional calendars. And on the slide that I use every year entitled Next Steps, I also added a bullet indicating a recommendation that we include an additional step this year that's not typically included in the calendar development process, stating that if the committee wanted to even consider a modified school year calendar, that step was surveying our stakeholders to determine their, and that word was italicized, their interest in having a modified school year calendar. This step was listed above the development of any drafts, and actually above steps typically involved in the development of any drafts. The committee agreed with this suggestion, and so I think because we have only surveyed folks at the end after drafts have been completed, I think there's a misperception that we have already developed drafts, that the decision has already been made to move to a modified school year calendar, and nothing could be further from the truth. We simply wanted to get stakeholder input before we went any further in the consideration, not wanting to invest any time in developing a draft for a modified school year calendar if it was not something that was wanted by our stakeholders. And our committee offered up other suggestions like creating the video that we've included in the survey and FAQs to explain what what a modified school year calendar is. So once we receive the feedback, which is due on Monday, Dr. Minor's office is teed up to summarize all of that information, and I'll be sharing that information with the district calendar committee when we meet next Thursday, November the 3rd. That I want to reiterate, there are no drafts of any calendars, and we'll follow the same process of developing drafts and presenting those drafts to the public for consideration after those drafts are done. So hopefully that background information helps you understand where we are right now in the process.
Thank you so much, Dr. Brizard. And clearly, we're just surveying for interests.
That's correct.
No calendars have been drafted.
No drafts are even in the works at this point.
Thank you so very much. Dr. Witherspoon, you can continue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And at this time, this concludes the superintendent's report. Thank you. And I would just like to say, Madam Chair, getting ahead of myself, members of the board, thank you. And we've made continued strides in this district, and we will continue to do so. I want to thank each and every one of you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Witherspoon, for your report. We'll open the floor at this time for any additional questions or comments as it relates to the superintendent's report. Commissioner Devine.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I asked that question regarding the calendar because we've been talking about this sometime pre-COVID, 16, 17, 18, about a modified calendar. So this is nothing new. I think there's an urgency across the state. As I travel as state president, I can tell you, for example, in Greenwood County, 80% of their constituents said yes, they wanted it. Edgefield County, 80% of the constituents said yes. With the Cherokee County, they didn't want it. So each community is different. I know some of the Spartanburgs, some of the Greenville is looking at that as well. So each district is different. Each community is different. So again, I just wanted to put out that this is just for information to see where we want to go as a community. If this is something that we want to do, we may not want to do it. You know, our district down at Aiken, majority of those constituents said yes, they wanted to do it, and so they put that in process, and it took about 2 or 3 years before they actually went into process. Went into effect. So it wouldn't be 23, 24. I know we said that. I'm on the calendar committee as well, and I apologize for not mentioning that earlier, but it may not be 23, 24, maybe 24, 25. We would give our constituents time to work on some childcare, some other things, and there'll be more meetings, I'm assuming, if this goes forward. If the majority of the community says, yes, we want this, there'll be some additional dialogue and follow-up with the different communities, and I would suggest that we even go cluster by cluster. That is my opinion. However the administration sees fit moving forward. But I wanted to bring that up because we all have gotten emails, and so I wanted to make sure that was out, that this is not a yes, go ahead for 23, 24. It's just interest. We want to see what the community feels. How do we move forward from here? So thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Devine. On the heels of that, Dr. Witherspoon or Dr. Brizard, and you can probably speak to this, and you know my question. Everybody doesn't have internet access. So everybody cannot respond to the request. So is there any latitude to do, as Commissioner Devine just mentioned, maybe cluster meetings to explain? I think a lot of individuals may not understand. We know what a modified calendar looks like because there are a lot of states that use it. We hear about it. I think Commissioner Lomanak and I had a discussion about how this would really benefit Richland 1 in a lot of ways because kids are kind of in school. Some call it year-round school, and it's practically year-round school. But you get a whole lot more breaks, and you get those breaks at the right time, but your learning is consistent. And I think what we are learning from COVID is that break in learning. We had to deal with the summer learning loss and the COVID learning loss, and it was a whammy and a doozy to school districts across the country. And I think that's why so many, to what Commissioner Devine is saying, so many districts are looking at how do we make up for that time. There was a national report that came out yesterday, very extensive report about the data, and it talked about only one state having gains. Out of the whole country, only one state had gains. It talked about schools, Dr. Witherspoon, in Arizona that had 70 kids in a class. I mean, a lot of the issues we have, others have it on a much larger scale. But I heard something a teacher said that I think it was just profound. She said, how is it that we're expected to make up 3 years of in-person learning in 1 year? It's not going to happen. But then she said something that was golden. She said, but let's take growth any day. Because that's what we need to see, that we're growing the child. And as time goes by, things such as a modified calendar would help us get us caught up like we want to be. And it would provide a little bit more consistency in learning. And I know have lots of family members that attend school districts that have modified calendars, and they do exceptionally well. So it's not a bad thing, but my concern is the data that you're going to receive won't be from all of your parents, because everybody don't have access to internet. And it's, again, not because they can't afford it, it's not available. So how do we take the information to those communities to make sure that everybody hears the information? Do we send out text messages, or how do we get more input versus that computer-generated survey? Because we have to look at that, Dr. Witherspoon.
We can work with those schools and those respective school communities so that they have ability at the school to provide some feedback.
And I will share, Chairwoman Harris, that one of the suggestions of the district calendar committee was that if we saw there was interest, we would probably need to go out by cluster and do more explanation. So that was brought up actually during our first calendar committee meeting.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Any additional questions on the superintendent's report or discussion at hand? Commissioner King?
I do. Dr. Broussard or Dr. Witherspoon, were the teachers and staff surveyed about the modified calendar?
Yeah, they have the ability to go in and check staff member or something to that effect. I think that's one of the options.
Yes, one of the, we had different audiences who could respond, and so this information was sent out to all of the staff for Richland 1, and you just designate whether or not you're, your role in the district.
So you're because
We'll be able to disaggregate that data.
Okay, good. Because I didn't get it. I didn't know it was coming out. So I don't have a kid in the system anymore. I won't say it, thank God. But anyway, I think that when I read it on the website, I was a little confused about really the purpose of it, and I think that we need to be, I guess. Is it to ease the lifestyle? Is it to provide relief to teachers who get the burnout? Is it to potentially increase academic achievement? I heard what Ms. Harris said. I mean, it makes sense, but is it going to be district-wide, or is there a possibility of just half the district or some schools? I know we've had Forest Heights in the past, but I think that was a little different on that one. But there's some districts, and I believe in Colorado, that actually within the district there are options for families to either do a modified calendar or not. So I would have all these questions and make sure that our stakeholders really sort of understand what would be in the best interest of the district overall. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, our core business is academic achievement. So, and right now is teacher recruitment and retention. And if that happens to be a really super get great reviews by the teachers and staff, that would be a great tool. But I think the communication has to be really clear. Thanks.
Okay. Any additional questions for Dr. Witherspoon? Okay. Seeing none, hearing none, thank you so much, Dr. Witherspoon, for your report. We do have one additional announcement. The next regular meeting of the Richland 1 Board of Commissioners will be held on Tuesday, November the 22nd, 2022, here at the Stevenson Administration Building at 1616 Richland Street. If there's no objection from the board, this meeting is adjourned.